Epigenetics is the hopeful science of how you can turn genes off if those genes are programmed to give you cancer or other diseases like diabetes type 2. Epigenetics modifies gene expression. So the gene can be there, it can be damaged, but it doesn't have to express itself in disease. And how does epigenetics do this? Via lifestyle habits. This permits disease reversal, which is also able to be passed down to your children. In science, we call that heritable. It puts cancer genes to sleep with food. Who am I quoting? I'm quoting me. That's my quote. Put your cancer genes to sleep with food, the proper food. It was Dr. Hans DIEHL who I'm indebted to for teaching me these truths back in the 1980s. He ran the CHIP project, the Complete Health Improvement Program. He taught me that genetics loads the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. A whole food plant-based diet can put your bad genetics to sleep too, so that you can outrun cancer and some of these other diseases before they start. So, what are the biochemical mechanisms whereby we can epigenetically modify cancer gene expression? How can we turn those cancer genes off? How can we put them to sleep? I'm not going to bore you with deep investigations into the DNA methylation, the histone modification, the non-coding RNA participation, but just suffice it to say that there's a lot of science out there, including this one published in 2015 in the journal Toxicological Science by 3 Italians whose names I love, Ravagnini, Sammarini, and Angelini. And in 2016, Dr. Wu published in the journal Nature. And this was a really great study showing that, once again, cancer is 70 to 90% due to extrinsic factors. Extrinsic means not your genetics. In other words, you may have a strike against you genetically, but you can outrun it. This agreed with Dr. Higginson's work that he published back in the 60s. So let's list some of the many biochemical mechanisms, and we'll just explore them briefly, showing how cancer, food, and biochemistry are related, starting with sulfur and progressing to IGF-1 and TMAO, trimethylamine oxidase, advanced glycation end products, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, cholesterol, nitrosamines from the smoke in cooked meats, and statins. How are they related to cancer? Acrylamides when you deep fry plant foods. Excess estrogen, because estrogen is a growth promoter, and growth out of control is cancer. And then there are the heterocyclic amines and vitamin supplements. How could a good thing like a vitamin cause cancer when it's put into a supplement form? We're going to look at those factors, and we're going to look at the good things that plants do. Vegetables help us prevent cancer through isothiocyanates. When you chew the vegetables and the myrosinase in your saliva combines with the isothiocyanates, you make cancer-fighting properties that you don't get if you juice or smoothie-ize the food in a blender. Then there's the polyphenols and the antioxidants, the isoflavones from soy. There's inositol from the whole grains like brown rice. There's the flavonoids and carotenoids in the yellow and green vegetables, and the indoles and glucosinolates in the cruciferous leafy green vegetables, which are great at fighting cancer, probably the best in the vegetable world. Cancer, food, and biochemistry got a big boost from Dr. Dong just this year in February of 2020 when he published his study on the sulfur contained in amino acids. Dr. John Ritchie, who's a professor of public health sciences at Penn State College of Medicine, said, and I quote, "For decades it has been understood that diets restricting sulfur amino acids were what? They were associated with longevity in animals. And where do we get those sulfur amino acids? We get them primarily from animal products, which are more likely to have cysteine and methionine, the sulfur-containing amino acids." So again, quoting Dr. Ritchie, this study provides the first epidemiologic evidence, and what he means by that is, this is done in humans, that excessive dietary intake of sulfur amino acids may be related to chronic disease outcomes in humans. And I'm also quoting him, high sulfur amino acid intake was associated with every type of food except grains, vegetables, and fruit. Hint, they're all plants. In other words, if you want a lot of acidity You need to eat a lot of animal protein. Cancer and sulfur. So a lower internal pH, that's acidity, promotes the start of cancer as well as the worsening of cancer, making it act more deadly by acting at the molecular level. There's several mechanisms such as acting on adrenal glucocorticoid, acting on IGF-1, which we'll talk about later, dysregulating the cell metabolism, boosting osteoclast activity, and fat cell cytokine signaling. You've heard of cytokines this year if you've been keeping up with the news on COVID-19 and hearing about cytokine storms. Cancer and sulfur are related because the more animal food in the diet, the lower our pH, that means the more acidic our insides, and thus not only the more cancer, but also the more deadly the cancer. This postulate was supported by research from 1996, Dr. Martinez, who published in Clinical Experience of Metastases, in 2000 by Dr. Zhu in Cancer Research, in 2005 by Dr. Cato's publication in the Journal of Biological Chemistry. Let's switch to TMAO.